Doing my best to bring you the real truth about what's going on in Afghanistan. This is Chuck Holton, and you're watching The Hot Zone.
This is The Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. I am in Afghanistan still, and I'm at the Dustoff facility, Dustoff being medevac. See that right there? And I'm here with Mason's unit. My son Mason is assigned to this unit, and they are doing a lot of really great things here on the ground in Afghanistan. You know, right now Afghanistan to the Americans is a lot like maybe Detroit, and here's what I mean by that. There is still the same amount of space that has to be covered in this war, but we've gone from over 100,000 troops down to something like 80, and down to something like 14,000 troops. And with only that many troops, they still got to cover pretty much the same amount of area, and so people are spread increasingly thin, especially in the most important military occupational specialties, one of which is the medevac. I mean, if somebody gets hurt, these people have to go, and they are doing yeoman's work here, without a doubt, in Afghanistan. So I got to take a trip, yesterday, I guess, over to Jalalabad, and that was the podcast I made yesterday. The flight on the way over there was done by a company called Columbia Air, and I just wanted to share some of the footage I got on that flight. The pilots were nice enough to let me sit in the jump seat and explain to me how their jobs go and everything. And so I just want to play a couple of excerpts of that. They did a great job, and it's obviously a really great company.
How'd you get into doing this?
Well, the guy that was our country manager for a while is now the director of government contracts for Columbia. He owned the flight school I trained at back in the mid-2000s. So he's been a command pilot logging with this company, doing utility stuff with them for like 27 years now, 28 years. So, yeah, I flew LA, Los Angeles for a while, for about 3 years, then flew Las Vegas for about 6.5. Then I've been working out here for 2 years, and last year I flew in Vegas part-time as well, so when I was off I'd fly. But yeah, just kind of through people.
A-Stars.
What's that?
You were flying A-Stars?
Yep, A-Star and EC-130.
The DEA had some of those. I got to ride around in a little bit. Those are nice.
Yeah, they're cool machines. They're just really agile, nimble, a lot of power.
Obviously, it's really important to stay in shape for these guys, and the military does not, they go no holds barred when it comes to building gyms. This gym is built kind of outside of this clamshell, and I just want to show you the gym back behind me. They've got a rowing machine, they got some free weights, they got that tire and everything. There's even some treadmills over here, and this clamshell folds down if necessary to enclose this area, but usually they just leave it open. And I would love to have a gym like this on my backyard, that's for sure, especially that rowing machine. I'm going to see if maybe I can fit that in my bag somehow and take that home with me. So let me show you a little bit more from the people that I've been talking to out here that are assigned to this unit and how they describe what it's like being here in Afghanistan.
At 10:30 every day, our duty crews for the day will come together. We'll get our operations and intelligence brief, find out what deliberate operations are going on for the day, what the assessed enemy threat is for the day, a good weather outlook for that duty period. And then we have 4 full crews for 2 mission lines that will be on duty for the next 24 hours. So we have a first up lead aircraft and chase aircraft, and then a second up lead and chase aircraft. First up is primary on-call for any medevac or TACEVAC, which is a patient transfer mission. And then second up is on-call for any mass cal, or in case first up is gone on a mission and we receive a follow-on mission, second up can respond to that.
Mass cal?
Mass cal, so mass casualty. So anything that we assess that exceeds the capabilities of that first up on-call crew. So multiple severely injured casualties that will create a significant amount of work for our flight medics, and they'll kind of take a look at that with our en route critical care nurses and say, hey, we need additional assets for this mission set.
What's the percentage of like POIs versus transfers you guys end up doing?
So it's different for the entire company. I have teams at different locations throughout Afghanistan. Here at this location, we do more patient transfers. Most of the delivered operations are covered by my other platoons at other sites. They will go to the POIs and get those patients, bring them back to the emergency care facility, the forward surgical team, the ghost teams, or the Roll 2 facility. They'll do that immediate damage control resuscitation, and then we will get the mission to go to that treatment facility and bring those patients back here to the Roll 3, which is the level 1 trauma facility here that has more surgical capabilities.
So is this your first, or how many deployments have you done?
This is my third deployment, my second deployment as an aviator.
Okay, and so when you're on a POI, what's running through your mind as you're coming into land?
Really the terrain and the enemy threat. Usually these are occurring at night. So the illumination, how dark it's going to be, where we're going to, making sure we can find that POI LZ, the ground force, and there's some aerial assets that do a lot to help us by marking the LZ. That's generally what we're thinking about, is making sure we find that correct LZ to land the aircraft, and then the terrain in which we're about to land that aircraft. How dusty is the LZ that we're about to go into? Is it going to create a brownout situation where we're going to lose sight of the ground, so that we can be prepared for that to continue to land the aircraft in a potential brownout situation?
Tell me how you rely on the guys in the back.
We rely on them to keep us clear of obstacles and to maintain situational awareness. So when we're going into a POI, there's going to be multiple aircraft operating out there, pulling overhead security, UAV assets, and those guys on the left and right will keep an eye on those aircraft, make sure we remain clear of those aircraft, keep calling out distance and direction to those aircraft, and then when we're coming in to land at the LZ, they'll make sure we remain clear of all obstacles. We cannot see the tail of our aircraft, so they make sure our tail rotor stays clear of any obstacles, and then as we're coming into a potential brownout dusty LZ, they'll make sure and call the dust conditions, so that we know as the dust is developing and building, they'll call light, moderate, heavy dust conditions. So before we get into a brownout situation, we're already anticipating and are prepared to react to it. And they let us know when we're clear and can continue to land the aircraft.
So you have to trust your lives to those guys, right?
Absolutely, 100%. You have to be a synchronized crew to land this aircraft safely. We cannot see everything behind us. We're focused on what's in front of us and below us. They're focused on everything around the aircraft and what's below the aircraft, making sure we're not drifting the aircraft towards any obstacles. So we absolutely have to be a synchronized crew with good crew coordination at all times.
Do you pretty much fly the same crew all the time?
No, we don't. We switch crews every day. It's a different crew, and it's good. It fights complacency. You work with one crew for so long, you start to compensate for each other by mixing it up every day, and everybody has something that you can learn from. So mixing that up, we learn from each other every day, and it fights that complacency from overcompensating from one another.
That's good. Tell me your name and did you say major, pilot?
Yep, Major Robbie Flowers. I'm the Medevac Dustoff commander, and I'm also a pilot in command and air mission commander for this mission.
We provide the rotary wing, so the helicopter support for all of the SAJOA all throughout Afghanistan. And we basically move troops and cargo and accomplish whatever mission is asked of us from the Resolute Support Commander.
Perfect. So what's the biggest challenge in doing that?
The biggest challenge to doing that is logistically speaking, the sustainment aspect of it. We have some fantastic air crews, but we are plussed up to a size larger than what we would normally be at home station or in garrison back in the United States. So the mission commanding all that piece of that stuff and sustaining it, from the fuel to the maintainers to everything that goes along with it to keep our aircraft flying, is probably the most difficult piece of that.
The mission in Afghanistan would not go forward without the aircraft that you provide.
Correct.
Right. I mean, you're providing not just the medevac, you're providing the air support and transport, and other than the civilian aviation that's here.
Correct.
Basically, all of the Army aviation.
All of the Army aviation. So from a tactical standpoint, it would be very difficult without what we are able to provide to the commander on the ground.
And what tactically can you say about the kinds of things you're doing?
So like I mentioned before, we move a lot of troops throughout the area because most things don't move by ground as much anymore. So we do that through the air. We also move cargo and much needed supplies throughout the area. But we also provide AWT or Apache attack helicopter support to the troops on the ground when they're in contact or in most need. And we also do this through surveillance and recon as well.
But when you say troops on the ground, you're not necessarily talking about Americans.
Not just Americans, no. We have a lot of coalition partners here, and we have also our Afghan partners that we help provide those assets or those personnel support that they need as well. So there are U.S. troops that come in contact in the air and on the ground.
Okay,
so we, like I was saying before, is if we go out and we are working with our coalition partners and we're working with our Afghan partners on the ground, we're training, advising, assisting them. So in order to be able to do that, we need to be out on the ground with them doing that. And it may be in very small numbers, but anytime a U.S. soldier is out there as well as an Afghan partner out there, we have to be in the air to provide them the level of support that they need to feel comfortable with what they're going on to do. So working with my troops, it's seeing how much they have grown. When we came over here, we were very young and very green. And just because that's the normal way of things moving around when soldiers move from place to place in their normal careers. But when we go into theater, we try to come over as close to 100% as possible. We come over having been through a bunch of different training scenarios where there would be CTCs like an NTC or National Training Center or something to that degree in order to get us trained up. But nothing is like combat is on the ground, right? And so to see them over the course of the last 5 or 6 months to grow in proficiency in every facet of their job, to be the most what I believe, to right now be the best combat aviation brigade in the Army because of our level of training and then what we've been able to execute over the last 5 to 6 months that we have been here. That the guys are just proficient and they're operating on a super fast level and able to accomplish anything that we stick in front of them without question.
So what should Americans take home?
So I would think, if I was telling the American people what they should be proud of, they could be proud of their sons and daughters and what they're doing over here and their daily sacrifices they're making and the difference that we're making for not just the Afghans, but for our people and our citizens back home and how we're protecting them from a future terrorist attack.
So the best thing about this trip is that I get to hang out with Mason. And tell me what you've been doing today. Anything interesting?
Just sleeping.
Sleeping all day?
All day.
Yeah, well, not quite. Got to go out a little bit, but they're obviously doing lots of good work, and we have to get everything we say cleared through 17 layers of bureaucracy before I can bring it to you. But suffice it to say, they're doing a lot of really good work, and I am having a great time hanging out with Mason. That's it for the podcast for today. Thanks for being a part of it. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.